Welcome to Mindful Live 101. We're moving well along. It is the 30th of June, the last day in June, is it? Yes, I believe it is. In the year 2022, welcome. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. A pleasure to be here. Tonight, we're talking turtles. We're talking turtles because there was a very sad story that came out of this storm. Blessed night, Jason X. There was a very sad story that came out of this storm. It turns out that we were not as unscathed as we thought. Some members of the Trinidadian population, some members were hurt, seriously hurt by this tropical cyclone that passed. Although it didn't hit us badly. Yes, Nubian Empress, you read correctly. That's precisely it. We're heading into that story one time. Hit that like button, please. The Grand River overflows. Homes flooded near Leatherback Turtle nests. Yeah, boy. The usually shallow and lazy river running through the north coast village of Grand River became a raging torrent late Wednesday because of the rainfall in the mountains. The rains were associated with the trailing edge of the weather system that led to a tropical storm warning on Tuesday, but which largely spared the islands. It is reported that as many as 40 homes and vacation rentals located on the south bank of the river were flooded, with some buildings being destroyed. There were several landslides and rock falls along the Paria Road, leading to the village between the villages of Montevideo and Matlat. Local government and rural minister Faris Al-Rawi said that the disaster management unit at the Sangre Grande Regional Corporation had been mobilized and municipal police officers sent to the scene. He said landslides were being cleared and the damage was being assessed. So 40 homes were destroyed. Yes, 40 human homes were destroyed. That is terrible. And I was saddened upon reading such. My heart goes out to everyone who lost their home. But it's such a strange thing. I don't know fully why, all the reasons might be, but for some reason, the story about the Leatherback Turtles kind of tugs at your heart more, although these people got their homes damaged. Strange, isn't it? Because from that same flooding at the Grand River, a leatherback turtle tragedy in Grand River. The nesting sites of the leatherback turtles at Grand River Beach have been severely impacted by raging floodwaters, with thousands of eggs being washed away. Right there. Did you see the one where the woman's house is literally on the beach? Nah, I didn't see that one. I was going to make a joke on that, but I probably shouldn't, because I'm sure she does not want her house on the beach right now. And it being on the beach may be very inconvenient and costly for her, but a house on the beach, ain't that a thing? But yes, thousands of eggs. How you build a house there? Well, wait. When you say the woman with the house on the beach, you mean she built the house on the beach, Nisi? Or did the floodwaters push the house onto the beach or something like that? If it was built on the beach, then I am not quite sure what is going on there. The good book speaks directly about building your house on sand. I mean, the good book warns us pretty directly, building your house on sand is a bad idea. So I mean, if you're building your house on the sand and the beach, I mean, oh gosh, if the Bible tell you that, oh gosh. No. But one of the difficulties I find when I look at many natural disasters is the fact that sometimes people put themselves in very horrible places. And if someone puts themselves in a bad place, whose fault is it? And whose responsibility is it to get them out of that place? You understand what I mean? Like, if someone purposefully puts themselves into danger, if someone purposefully builds their house on the sand at a beach, or there are many people in Trinidad and Tobago, there are many people who purposefully build their homes on riverbanks. Sometimes it's the only land they have, sigh. I understand that, Kiki John. I understand that. Good night, Wendy Medium Excel. I understand that. Granted, I get that. But whose fault is it in the end? So if someone if someone decides to build their house on the riverbank and the river floods it, can you blame anyone else for it? Even though it was the only option they saw that they had. If someone, even through desperation, puts themselves into very dangerous places, whose fault is it? Now, as someone brought up that, I remembered reading something recently or hearing about something very recently that might pertain to some questions like that. There was a salvager crushed at Forest Park landfill. Salvager Mr. David Charles succumbed this morning to injuries he sustained on the afternoon of Friday, 24th June. He was accidentally crushed by a D8 tractor that was compacting an area within the tipping vicinity of the Forest Park landfill. Swimcall CEO Mr. Kevin Thompson has expressed sadness on behalf of the board of directors. So, I was listening to, was it a press conference or they were at a joint select committee or something of the sort with the board of Swimcall, and they were talking about these such incidents. And at the dumps, there are salvagers regularly. Salvagers are there. And in order, if you're a salvager and you want the best salvaged material, you kind of have to get in there really quickly. You have to rush in as fast as possible. But rushing in quickly into a dump where everything else is being dealt with heavy machinery and it's already toxic and dangerous and dirty material there, it's a very dangerous thing. So, good night, sir. Swimcall has said that they have made rules to try and stop this, and they have changed certain rules, and they have officers there and they're trying to enforce such things. But the truth is, I am sure many of the salvagers don't want it enforced. Many of the smaller trade workers, they don't want safety measures enforced on a job site that they're on. If you go to a mechanic's garage in Trinidad and Tobago and you pull up what the safety directions may actually be for mechanic, the health and safety, and you go to the average village mechanic in Trinidad and Tobago, you might shut them down. And they may think, well, I'll take the risk if I'm getting the money. And if someone is willing to take the risk to get the reward, then when the risk doesn't pay off, can you really blame many people? I mean, you got to know the risk you're taking. And that's something that I always found kind of strange. Like, all right, I understand people are in difficult situations, but if you take yourself up and build on the floodplain, that I always remember the point in time in secondary, well, it wasn't secondary school, the point in time when I read a geography textbook and I saw that the connecting land, the land right next to a river, right next to the riverbed, is known as the floodplains of the river. And then I remember back then, as a little youth, questioning to myself, if I want to build a house and I want to live in that house for a considerable period of time, and I want the goods that I put in that house to stay up to mark, would I build in a place literally called the floodplain? And I always just find it kind of strange that you build on the floodplain and then you're surprised about flooding. This is not to say that I don't understand that through historical situations, etc. I mean, if you were born in a certain area, for example, Bangladesh, the country of Bangladesh is basically entirely built on a delta. If you're a Bangladeshi, if you're born in Bangladesh, I mean, it's not your fault you were born in a country that is built on the flooding mouth of a river. That's not your fault. So I understand that, but I'm talking about the reality part of it, that That's the part I don't get. If you're the one choosing to go there, I don't get it. However, there are other instances where it's not all your fault too. You have to admit that. I remember, what's the name of that area down in the east near La Hoqueta there? Was it Greenville? That flooded really badly. Listen, I went into Greenville because I have some roots down in the east there. Good place, good place. So let's talk about how the average Chinese build their house flat on the ground. HGC need to start doing their job, give people homes so they wouldn't go by the river. I'm now going to speak about that Jason X. Jason X, this talk here about HDC giving people homes. HDC gave people homes in Greenvale. Greenvale, right next to La Hoqueta, is right next to a river. If you know anything about that area, I drove down there. I remember driving down there sometime after the flooding went on. And you come from the river. You know how many times I feel I could squat waiting for an HGC for 18 years now. I don't blame you when the medium excel. I don't blame you at all. Squatting seems very tempting sometimes. Don't be surprised if you see me on a news story somewhere pleading with them not to break down my home, cause yeah, I understand that. I find it's kind of unreasonable, I think, for people to be born in a country and cannot find places to live in the country. Whose fault it is that the houses flooded? Look how they were built. But Kiki Jan, it wasn't the individuals that built those homes. That was an HDC development. HDC went out, built these homes, came and told people, here, we have built homes for you. Exactly a flooded area with no drainage. If you ask me, it was a failed attempt murder. Thank you, Nappy here. Thank you, Nappy here, Barbie Backup. Wow, what a full name. I kind of agree, because I went in Greenville, and as I said, I was originally from the east side there, so I know the vicinity a bit. I came from the river. You come over the river, you come over the bridge, and okay, the river is here. Then you go down. Then you go down more into Greenville. Then you go down more as you go more into the community, and I'm like, wait. There's a river 100 feet that way, and there's an HDC development that is sub-level right here. What do we expect to happen? But the practice of building houses like that is common in TNT, Kiki John says. I don't disagree with that. But I'm just pointing out that it isn't a common practice just with the individual builders of individual homes. It's also the government too, because HDC did that. HDC. Listen, when you're building with HDC, you have all kind of heavy equipment. First of all, you have all the state land to choose from. You don't have to choose a floodplain. Come on, leave that for some agricultural land. We could have put a dashing patch instead of a HDC housing development. A dashing patch might have made more economic sense. Go put the housing somewhere else. I also remember, on that topic, just flowing from that topic, I remember in university, we were learning about some of the strata of the soil. And we learned that some of the most fertile soil in the country is where they built most of the houses in the country, and left the plains in Carney that aren't as fertile open. Like, go build some houses in the Carney Plains where don't flood, not next to the river. But you would build next to the river as a government with the entire country in your hand to choose from. That doesn't make sense. I even had Senator Khadija Amin to write HDC and no dice. Gosh, it was an HGS. Imagine late night and that happened. Madness, they know what they're doing. Evilness, no concern to life. Listen, I don't want to go down that road. That for logical thinking, people not our government, Davian, Melissa Davis says over on Facebook there. Thank you. One of the few Facebook comments. Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't understand what was that. That I could agree with what Nappy here Bobby was saying there and say that could nearly seem like attempted murder, because you built this thing in a depression next to a river. Oh gosh, like we know how those things go. It's a floodplain. It's going to flood. That was just cruel, cruel, cruel. But many people on their own go and do that. Now, I was speaking in a previous video about the reality of trade-offs, that the reality of the world that we live in, there are negatives in this world. There are realities in this world that are unavoidable. We live in the Caribbean near the hurricane belt. During the hurricane season, between June to November, inevitably, the reality is very likely we may be at the risk of hurricanes. If you live in Grenada, well, you may be at a higher risk. And that's just the reality of it. Nothing you can do about that. And even if you attempt to fix that some way, generally the way life works is very often by attempting to fix it, you end up with a trade-off where you have to take something in another area. And what actually happens very often when I look at the government, how they try to fix flooding, they clean the rivers, they dredge the rivers. I worry about that too, because rivers make themselves. When the Medium XL asks, does anyone know how to change agricultural land to residential? I'm not sure. You need a lawyer for that. Where was I? Yes. How they fix it many of the times is they would dredge the river. But rivers make themselves. The route of a river, how deep it is, the volume of a river, is something that is naturally crafted. As water flows through the river over time, it erodes and makes the river into a suitable vessel to carry the water that is required. Now, when human intervention comes in, very often, if you go dredge a river, you are going to increase the speed of the river, causing it to erode more going down the road. Those things happen over and over, and as soon as you try to fix that problem here, very often you end up creating another problem here. So in fixing the problem itself, I think wisdom is really needed. It's not something that could just that has an easy fix. Sometimes people think like all you need to do is dredge the river, clean the river here, and you're hearing down in somewhere in South that was it Heritage Petroleum made some change to our river course, and people are complaining. They're saying that they feel like they're going to die down there. Like if another flood comes through, people feel like it could be the end of it for them. So even in solutions, you have to be very careful how it's done. All right. But all of this was distracting from the leatherback. We started talking about the leatherback. That's the original story here. Our leatherback turtles, we lost several thousand of their eggs. Imagine if we had real rivers in Trinidad instead of those big drains. Richard Gladman, you sound like a Guyanese. To be honest, you sound like a Guyanese. My significant other has strong links to Guyana. I know Guyanese people well, and one of the flexes of Guyanese people, anytime a Guyanese, trust me with this, one of the biggest flex of the Guyanese is when you point out a river to a Guyanese, like, hey, that's the Caroni River. They're like, ha. That ravine, that's not a real river. If you go in Guyana, you'll see real rivers. Yes, we know you all are part of the rainforest and everything, Guyana, okay. We're a small island, so we have small rivers. But you're right, Richard. If we did indeed have some of those larger rivers, we would have been in a lot of trouble. Like, that was part of the trouble that New Orleans got in with Hurricane Katrina. New Orleans is lower than sea level, lower than the Mississippi River that passes right next to it. Now, what they had were levees and embankments and pumps to make sure that although New Orleans was the Greenville and the Mississippi was right there, the idea was if they have enough levees, they would be able to protect it. But the levees were not sufficient, so the water overflowed. And here's the problem. One of the main problems when your community, when the area is lower than wherever the water area is, wherever the water passageway is, whether it's sea level or river level or whatever, if your community is lower than that, the water kind of has to evaporate out. Like if in regular flooding, if you're living on a floodplain, a regular floodplain, and it floods, the water would flood, and after a little while it would flow off back into the river or back down to the sea, wherever. But if you're in a catchment, you're like in a little valley, right next to a river in a little valley, and water ends up in there, you kind of have to pump it out or wait till all evaporates. That was one of the major problems with New Orleans when Katrina hit. I can't remember which year that was. I'm not even going to guess. That was one of the problems. That's why if you look back at pictures of New Orleans during Katrina, you saw people on top of their homes looking out and begging, etc., water there for weeks because the place was so low. You kind of have the water have to evaporate out or pump out, and that's a lot of water to pump out. Damian Melissa over on Facebook says the more concrete jungles we build, the less area for water to be absorbed, therefore more water into the watercourses. That's very, 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 very true. That's one of the problems with Port of Spain. Good night, King Kaka. What you miss? You miss that the flooding in Grand Riviere wipe out thousands of turtle eggs, bro. Hurt our heart. Really hurt our heart. But yeah, that's another part of the problem. And I think this is important for us to understand, because I sometimes understand. Let me rephrase this. Rephrasing before I even say it. I understand why people complain to the government when flooding happens, because that's within the purview of the government to take control of those things, etc., etc., etc. But it also kind of perplexes me when you look and you see people doing things and not also understanding that some of the actions that we take, some of the advancement that we make in life, some of that is what causes the problems. One of the reasons, if 3 people spit together in Port of Spain, it's going to flood. You can't spit consecutively with another person in Port of Spain and it not flood. Part of that is there's so much concrete. Nathan Rose's son says, imagine infrastructure designed to facilitate proper drainage and community cities built, and this instead of the other way. Well, that's quite an imagination to have. Nisi says those big shots who cut down the mountains to build their apartments. That's very unwise. K-Jig, I live in a flood-prone area that was exacerbated by development in Brentwood. Yes, and that's the very same thing I'm saying. And sometimes people don't recognize that a development downstream could affect a place that was already occupied upstream. A development upstream could affect a place that was already occupied downstream. And when you concrete everything, like I don't like the Trini habit. Like many Trinis, how you know a Trini made it? If you have a nice job and you're really fixing your house, one of the final things you do is you concrete your entire yard. Your entire yard must be cast, and your entire yard must be cast, and you must tile it. Now, I understand the want for the cast yard and it's easier to manage, etc., etc. But if everybody has a cast yard, everybody has a concrete yard, hard surface, rain falls, all the rain ends up in the drain in quick time. All the rain in the drain ends up in the big drain in quick time. What happens is the point in time between peak rainfall and peak water inside of the waterways is too quick. The water flows too quickly into the drains and flooding happens. The drains aren't made to hold over a certain amount of water. The drains are made to hold a limited amount. Now, bear in mind, as I was talking about floodplains earlier, when it comes to rivers, rivers are made to flood. Just by the way how rivers are engineered by themselves, by Mother Nature, they're made to flood. But the drains that people build, generally they build them hoping to hold the capacity that the max amount of water would flow. But if each time more people develop, they put less soft soil around for water to percolate into the soil, all the water that falls ends up in the drain as soon as the rain falls, and surprise, surprise, when it all ends up in the big drain down on the end of the hill, wow, it's going to flood. There's no surprise there. And the solution to that might just be changing our building habits. Oh, for goodness sakes, put the Julie mango tree and some lawn in your yard. Jeez. But then again, the whole living style of apartments too changes that, because if you're building apartments, of course the whole thing is going to be concrete. Concrete jungles, as someone rightfully said, leads to that. It's kind of unavoidable. One is going to lead to the other. It have a porous concrete now. All right. Well, I feel like if you put down porous concrete, you're going to get grass growing in between your concrete very quickly, and then you're going to get a grassy yard. As grass grows, dirt comes and becomes trapped next to the grass, and your concrete is going to turn to dirt. So, like, I don't doubt there's porous concrete, but I'm not sure how long porous concrete will last. I'd have to look into that. That sounds interesting. But on the other hand, we need to understand there is more rain falling in a shorter space of time. I wouldn't blame the rain, because the rainfall hasn't increased that much. The rainfall year on year in the Caribbean hasn't gone up really that much. It's kind of the same thing. It's just part of how we have changed in development. We have changed how we live. Yes, I'm sure there's porous concrete. I don't doubt that. But what I'm saying is porous concrete used on top of dirt. If you put porous concrete on top of dirt, isn't eventually, because regular concrete not cast well on top of dirt, eventually grass will grow through it if water can percolate through the concrete. Interesting. I'll have to look into it. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure about it. It's actually decreasing the rainfall. Now, I'm going back to my turtle story. We were distracted from the turtles, because there's some to this. Grand Riviere Nature Tour Guide Association President Len Peters told the Express yesterday that the usually lazy Grand Riviere River burst its banks at mid-afternoon on Wednesday, flooding the beach and at least 40 homes in the North Coast village. Grand Riviere is the largest leatherback nesting site in the Caribbean. Grand Riviere is the largest leatherback nesting site in the Caribbean, and thousands of the eggs from the largest leatherback nesting site in the Caribbean washed away. That's a disaster, I find. Thousands of eggs were washed away here. The area was severely impacted, some parts with floodwater up to 6 feet high. The beach is littered with organic debris like tree branches, bamboo, a lot of silt and gravel dumped on the beach, he said. Aye. So turtle watching might be a little bleak this year. Turtle watching might be a little bleak this year. My main story for the night, though, I don't know, I think it's protected. I don't think it's still endangered, Richard. I'm not sure. But I'm almost sure it's still protected. My main story for the night, though, at least what I found most interesting, what I did my contemplation about today, isn't the turtles. It's the killing of a police. A police officer was murdered. Richard Gladman, I'm glad you're in the live tonight. A police, well, let's not use the word murdered. A policeman was killed. And it was alleged for quite some time that the perpetrator was the person they were seeking, who they went to arrest, and he turned around and he shot the police officer and they were hunting him, etc., etc., etc. Then eventually ballistics came back and they recognized it now, but it looks like a police gun. And an investigation was launched. The investigation from the Police Complaints Authority has been completed, at least to some extent, and some of the details have been released. Very, very serious, Jason X. Quite serious. PCA. Constable Gilks killed by his own. The Police Complaints Authority has completed its independent investigation into the fatal shooting of PC Clarence Gilks in Rich Plain, Dago Martin on April 22nd. In a statement issued today, the PCA said it has concluded that members of the TTPS abused their power and deliberately misled the acting commissioner of police. This incident is one of the clearest examples of abuse of police power that the PCA has investigated to date, said the PCA. One of the worst abuses of police power to date that they investigated, according to the Police Complaints Authority. According to the PCA, the evidence revealed that officers of the TTPS shot at an unarmed civilian. So the man they shot at in the first place was unarmed. Unfortunately, PC Clarence Gladman became an unintended target. Further evidence revealed that police officers deliberately misled the acting commissioner of police on the events that transpired, said the PCA. The scientific evidence gathered by the PCA clearly demonstrates PC Gilks was fatally shot by one of his fellow officers. However, before this evidence became apparent, the police officers informed the acting commissioner of police that an unarmed civilian would have shot PC Gilks, which led to his death and caused the police service to launch a manhunt in order to deal with the persons responsible for this act. The PCA said it has made recommendations to both the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Office of the Acting Commissioner of Police. Now, the story isn't yet finished there. The lawyer, they forgot to mention he was shot twice. Wow. The lawyer claims PCA probe into PC Gilks' death biased. The lawyer for 3 police officers under investigation in the shooting death of their colleague, PC Clarence Gilks, says the findings by the Police Complaints Authority reek of bias. In a phone interview on Thursday, Ulrich Skerritt responded to a statement by the PCA which found police abused their power and deliberately misled the acting commissioner of police. This incident is one of the clearest. Well, we read that. It said the evidence revealed, we know what it revealed. Skerritt said the PCA said it had done an investigation, but to date, it had not interviewed his clients about what happened. So he is saying that the PCA couldn't do a thorough investigation because they didn't interview his clients yet. I don't agree with that. I think they could have still done a thorough investigation. And if your clients are interested in telling their side of the story, when the DPP brings the matter before the courts and they are put in the witness stand, I believe they will get a fair chance to see their entire version of the story. And they don't need to be interviewed. I don't understand why the lawyer would think that the PCA needs to interview the officers. Remember, these officers would have had to write a report about the incident. Why would they need to interview you if you already wrote a report? They can read your report, officer. They said scientific, not full investigation. Richard Gladman, a police could shoot a man, a face shot on live TV on Independence Square, midday, stream live on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and you and the guys over on Beyond the Tape are going to find something wrong with that. No, something doesn't line up there. What did that guy do to deserve that face shot? So I understand. Of course, it's just scientific. It's not a full investigation. Although they said they wrapped up the investigation and came to that conclusion and made recommendations to the DPP. Well, good. Thank you, Richard Gladman. I'm glad you are. His clients, an acting corporal and 2 constables formerly assigned to the Western Division Task Force, were suspended from duty by the acting commissioner of police on May 6th after a ballistics report revealed the bullet which killed Gilks was fired from a police gun. Skerritt said it is clear that the PCA from the onset had a haphazard approach and almost biased approach to the investigation into the matter. This is the police lawyer speaking here. This is the police lawyer. Well, he made recommendations to the commissioner of the commissioner of police and the DPP. Nisi is asking if any arrest is going to be made. Well, I guess that would be up to the commissioner of police and I guess in his recommendations that he gets from the DPP. But this is the lawyer speaking for the police here. He's saying that the PCA was they clearly started this haphazardly. It seems like they had bias. If they came to that conclusion that the police officers fired upon an unarmed man, what they are in fact doing is clearly taking an approach that whatever that man said was true, and without interviewing the other parties investigating the matter. In those circumstances, I will urge the public to await the findings of the official police investigation. Now, tell me if this makes sense, people in the live. You all please tell me, because maybe it's too advanced for me. The independent body created to investigate complaints against the police investigated a matter about police allegedly shooting at an unarmed civilian and trying to frame him for killing their compatriot. The lawyer representing the police says, don't listen to the PCA, the independent authority in charge of investigating complaints against the police. Don't listen to them. They may be biased. Let's wait for the official police investigation into the matter. That's where we would get the real information. Folks, not the police complaints. The police are going to investigate what the police have done, and when the police have investigated the police, the result of that investigation, that would be the real one. Regardless of the investigation, these officers are still receiving a salary. Well, here's the thing. They launched a manhunt. That manhunt, in the days that it lasted, I will not doubt that manhunt costed millions. If you check everything, the overall cost, millions. I find in a case like this, if these men are found guilty, they have to pay it back. Your home will be foreclosed upon, whatever it be, pay us back. Because you went out there, you killed somebody, then you attempted to frame someone for murder, then very likely you went out hunting the man who you were attempting to frame. And listen, let's not mama guy ourselves. We know if they were framing this man for murder, when they caught him, what do you think they would have done? Police initially claimed 12 Western Division Task Force officers. Now, listen to this. Listen to this. 12 Western Division Task Force officers. And this is why in our live previously, I said that police act like a gang. Because, good night, Tony the Ambassador, right man, for this kind of conversation. Good night, sir. 12 officers. The reason many people have a problem with police, multiple topics tonight, games will TT. We spoke previously about the Leatherback Turtles and unfortunately what happened to them because of the flood down in Grand River. And now we're talking about the killing of PC Gilks and the investigation from the Police Complaints Authority, where they deemed that he was killed by his own police officers who were attempting to shoot at an unarmed civilian, killed their own compatriot, and then attempted to blame the unarmed civilian for killing their compatriot. That's what we're talking about tonight. Hit that like button if you're inside of the live. Anywhere you're inside of the live, over on Facebook, over on TikTok, over on YouTube, hit that like button. Allow the algorithms to know that, hey, this is some good stuff. The guy is making sense occasionally, and we like listening to this. So you hit the like button, and the algorithm gets to know that. If you're streaming this live over on TikTok or on Facebook, you can feel free also to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Nathan Spring on YouTube, because the lives are available on repeat there if you miss any of the lives. And also I drop daily, usually daily, YouTube videos on various different topics. You can feel free to go out there. Tony the Ambassador says our officers should be outfitted with body cams so this kind of thing can be reduced. I agree. Fully agree with you, Tony the Ambassador. Here's the problem. I believe when the conversation about body cams was brought up, the police welfare organized, what are they called? The police union. But I believe the police cannot legally have a union, so they have some other technical name for them. That group did not want the body cams. The officers don't want the body cams. I fully agree that they should have body cams. Fully agreed. No problem with me here. But the reason that But the reason, well, if it's not working and you cannot, and on technical evaluation, you cannot provide a good reason why it's not working, then that itself should be a charge or a punishment of some kind. Anyway, 12 officers went on this case. To me, that tells me 12 officers are willing to lie at worst, fabricate an entire story, or at best, at least turn a blind eye when they know something wrong is going on. Vote out the PNM problem solved. Of course, Brent Ragunat, because in 2010 to 2015, Trinidad was a perfect place. Come on, man, give me an ease up. So, 12 police officers went out there and did this. 12 of them, according to the initial report. 12 Western Division Task Force responded to a report of a man armed with high-powered guns at Rich Plain. They reported they confronted one of the men, Jelano Romney, on the steps leading to a hilly area and were shot at, in the course of which Romney had killed Gilks. As a result, Jacob, who arrived hours after the incident, said criminals had declared war on the police and over 100 officers, soldiers, and special units were deployed in the Diego Martin Hills, Carenage, and other areas to capture Romney, then declared the country's most wanted man. Even on Beyond the Tape, you hear Alexander giving excuses as to why they didn't want to use it. I cannot take Beyond the Tape. I need to look at Beyond the Tape in spurts, in highlights. I'm sorry, in the earlies, I could have taken it a bit, but now it's just not really my cup of tea. Romney evaded capture and went to Venezuela. He only returned and surrendered to the PCA after an autopsy revealed that the bullet which killed Gilks in the back of the head came from a police gun. Now, listen. Hear the thing, eh? That back of the head shot, I find... Say less. Say no more. Back of the head... I wonder if the investigation found out how close the shooter was when the shot was made. The man ran to Venezuela. That's the only reason he escaped. I have given up watching it because it's a tool to try to make the TTPS look good. The man escaped to Venezuela. Now, this is a good reason to understand that people who are running from the police aren't always in the wrong. When people are talking about the police are out for them, sometimes they're right. Sometimes they indeed are out for them. If the police found this man, I think they would have dealt with him on a different kind of level, to be very honest. Good night, Rhea. Because back then, after whatever news they spread, friendly cop killed suspect denies it. Not just that. Friendly fire foolishness. It was murder, says Jacob. The suspect wanted for Friday's shooting death. This is an article from back then of a police officer in Diego Martin remained on the run yesterday despite 80 plus officers looking for him. Acting Commissioner of Police McDonald Jacob also rubbished reports about friendly fire. On Friday night, as he responded to questions that PC Clarence Gilks was shot by one of his colleagues, Jacob spoke to the Express after visiting Rich Plain Road, Diego Martin, after Gilks was shot in his neck around 3 p.m. that day. Police reported that they were at Upper Rich Plain Road after receiving report that men with high yada yada yada. Jacob, you're right. Jacob said, while on the scene on Friday, the Express was told by several residents, all requesting anonymity, that PC Gilks was shot by one of his own. That is a lot of hogwash in relation to the circumstances in which the incident happened, said Jacob. Our investigators will look at all angles, but the officers who were present had given how everything had occurred, and it is amazing to know other persons were present, said Jacob. You hear what he said? It's amazing to know other persons were present. You know, that's the police and their taunting language, how they talk about it, how they talk about it. You see, our police were on the scene, and it's amazing to know that now other people say that they were on the scene and they know more than our police who are actually there and know the facts of the situation. These people do not know the facts. Please, please, you were wrong. Now, to me, something like this, Mr. Jacob needs to return to that community with an apology on his lips for the entire community. That's what he needs to do. If he wants to rectify this, he needs to return and apologize to that community. Because you went out there and tried to make it seem like this community was harboring criminals and harboring police killers, cop killers, and cop murderers, and attempted to make it seem like these people are liars, while indeed it was your own men under your own control and supervision were the liars in this matter. You owe it to that community to apologize. Maybe after this, the residents of Morpha may also get justice. I was looking at that case, and I think it's still undergoing investigation. 13 officers, I believe, are still possibly facing charges there. So we'll see how that goes. But there needs to be an apology. This kind of behavior that Mr. Jacob showed here is the very same reason I can't watch shows like Beyond the Tape, because this is the behavior of Beyond the Tape. Regularly, you hear police, when an incident happens and things look iffy, they talk about the public needs to relax, don't jump to conclusions, don't make a conclusion on the matter before an investigation is had. If you go to a scene and the residents are saying something like that, don't say it's hogwash, you say it needs to be investigated. That's all you say, because obviously you don't know, and apparently now it shows that now obviously you were wrong. It wasn't just him, and this is why the police gang is so dangerous. This is why the police gang is so dangerous. Now, maybe all police aren't in the gang. Maybe some of our police officers are still members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, but there are certainly a lot of members of the Boys in Blue gang. The Boys in Blue gang, these different issues are why the Boys in Blue gang continues doing what they do. Richard Gladman, Jacob went on info he had, but he spoke a little out of timing. He spoke a lot out of timing, because he and officers like him are always the ones to say you don't speak before you have the evidence and information, before you have an investigation done. You didn't even get the investigation done to show you the ballistics on the gun. From the time the ballistics on the gun was released, it was already established it was a wrong story. Cordell, Goulding, they are the ones that make it us against the state in this society. Tony the Ambassador, he must rebuild trust with the community. I agree. Nathan Rose's son, so what about the forensic ballistics report? Do we even have or use this technology? Well, there was some of that. That's how the guy was shown that he was innocent. Now, it wasn't just the commissioner. When I heard about PC Gilks, thoughts stirred inside of me. National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines yesterday threw his support behind the police, who up to last night was still searching for a man who allegedly shot and killed one of their own on Friday. Hines delivered remarks yesterday during the flagship dedication and ribbon-cutting ceremony of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Credit Union's new headquarters at Eastern Main Road, San Juan, standing next to Acting Police Commissioner MacDonald Jacob. While speaking to the Sunday Express after the formalities, Hines offered condolences on behalf of the government to the friends and relatives, etc. When I heard about PC Gilks, thoughts stirred inside of me that when we are running away from crime and criminality, these are the people led by Mr. Jacob who go towards it. And Mr. Gilks went towards it. He said, I know operations are going on, but it is a sad state of affairs when some people choose to live by crime and have chosen such a path. It has gotten to the extent where law enforcement can come under the kind of attack. He is right. Law enforcement is under the attack of criminality and crime, but the attack of criminality and crime is coming from inside. Yeah. The monster is inside the house, Mr. Hines. Sir, Honorable Minister Hines, The monster you look for resides inside the house. That his apology would never happen. The COP should resign. Well, he's acting anyway, so when the actual real person comes in, he'll go very likely. That situation was crazy. Heads need to rule for this. Exactly. As a member of the Rich Plain community, not involved in gangs or anything like that, I've seen a lot. Cordell Golding says injustice done to citizens by police. Positive radiation. Commissioner of Police should be so emotional. If he can't control, shouldn't be so emotional. If he can't control his emotions, don't face the media until you have your emotions under control. I agree with that. Nathan Roussan says that's the sad truth that they won't admit. And the thing is, all of this, the swiftness with which the Commissioner of Police, reaching on the scene, not knowing anything, is willing to back the boys in blue to the hilt. The swiftness with which the Minister of National Security, not knowing anything about the details, is willing to back the boys in blue to the hilt. That's the problem. That's the problem. These boys in blue don't need backing like that. They need scrutiny. That's what they need. Lots of scrutiny. Lots of scrutiny. Because this kind of behavior, if they were willing to attempt this, you have to question every single time you've heard he opened fire, and in upkeeping our use of force policy, we returned fire, hitting him several times about the body. He was ferried to the hospital and died on the operating table while undergoing treatment. Every single time you hear that now, you have to pause and listen and look back at that with, I'm not sure. Now, to me, what was the scariest part of some of this was the mother and what she said about this entire incident. Mom, police trying to kill my son since 2019. The mother of the man suspected of killing PC Clarence Gilks claimed on Friday that the police have been trying to kill him since he took legal action against them in 2019. Gaddafi Romney told the Sunday Express the police attempted to shoot her 29-year-old son on Friday afternoon, but he ran off. She said when the officers called him to exit his home, he complied. My son put his hands up and they shot 20-something bullets behind him, and in doing so, they shot their own police officer, she said. Listen. Tony the ambassador, but the commissioner was in a spot where he had to appear in support of his men. I disagree. The police commissioner does not work for the members of the police service. The police commissioner works for the members of the Trinidad and Tobago electorate, the members of the Trinidad and Tobago population, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. That's who he works for. The support he has to show, he has to appear in support of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. That's the problem with the police, where the corporal in the police thinks that he has to appear in support of his fellow men in blue. No, you have to appear in support of the citizens of the country. If your fellow men in blue are opposed to the fellow citizens of the country, you support the citizens of the country against your fellow men in blue. Your support isn't stuck to them. That's the problem. This batch nonsense, it's a gang we're creating. We have a gang looking over us in the country. He's the leader of the police service, but that's not who he works for. He doesn't work for the police service. It's like the prime minister is the leader of the cabinet. He doesn't work for the cabinet members. The members of parliament, the other ministers in the cabinet, they aren't the ones that the prime minister has to hedge around and protect. Oh no, my minister of national security is doing corruption. I have to look out for my boy. No, that's not what we want. We want him to answer to us. And if the minister of national security does corruption, he doesn't take even remotely his side. He fires him immediately. That's what we want. But then we look at the police service and say, you know what? Not for the police service. Boys in blue become a gang. That's the problem. That's the problem we have. Police is literally a gang. Think about this, how many illegal things happen and they cover it up. That's what I was saying. I am sure there are members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. There are servicemen wearing grey and blue servicing Trinidad and Tobago. However, there's also a pretty large gang in the same service. And they are members of a gang. They're a gang. End of it. And this here, are you understanding how scary what the mother was alleging is? What the mother is alleging there, if true, is extremely worrying. The police wanted to kill her son is what she alleges. The police were attempting to kill her son. He wasn't armed. Now, the part about this that corroborates her story is that the Police Complaints Authority, after their investigation, said that indeed the police shot at an unarmed civilian. So the mother was right. Her son came outside and these 12 task force members that went down to Ridge Plain started shooting at him, trying to kill him. They were shooting at him, trying to kill him so bad that they ended up killing their own fellow member. Listen, Mr. Gilks himself may be guilty of attempted murder. Consider that. I am not attempting to speak ill of the dead. I said maybe, but if he was there, he or some of his fellow police were shooting at an unarmed suspect. He was somehow in the way enough that bullets were hitting him. Was he part of the crew attempting to kill the unarmed suspect? Was this a hit organized by our official TTPS? Are we understanding how scary this is? A hit carried out by 12 members of our task force, who then engaged over 100 members of our national security infrastructure to lock down all of Diego Martin to attempt to kill the man who they were trying to frame for the case. That is scary. Nathan, the youth man, is not a saint, but he has soon over a new leaf for a few years now. I don't doubt that, you know. I regularly say, most of the times when you see police do things, regularly they're doing things to men who are involved in underworld activities. I don't doubt that. However, that's not how the legal system is supposed to run. Most of the, remember I was saying they are members in a gang. Some of them are members in a gang. Most gangs, the bad things that most gangs do, most of it is to other gangs and other guys in criminality. When gang members jump in a car and load up the AR and load up whatever else they load up and going on a hit, they don't go on a hit generally to shoot Mary and George, who are happily married, living in the ideal nuclear family home, going to work for 8 in the morning. They're generally going to hit other gangs. So by doing someone something who was supposedly involved in illegal activities, that doesn't make it any better in my book. So we're in a situation here where 12 members of our task force, 12 members of our task force, according to the evidence, headed to Diego Martin, seemingly to do a hit on an individual who was unarmed at the moment. Now, if he was unarmed and they were attempting to kill him, I don't doubt that he would have gotten a gun after his death. If he was unarmed, think about this. If he was unarmed and they were going to shoot him, do you think they would have said that he was unarmed and they shot him? No, they wouldn't have said that. So the gun that would have been found on Mr. Romney's body if he did die, where would that gun have come from? Questions that just make you go, you know, who knows? Do you think if they shot Mr. Romney there and then that they would have found him indeed unarmed, or would he have happened to have had a gun? This is scary. This is indeed scary. It makes you look at, as I said, at everything. I remember this guy, he went by the name Jaloni, the guy who was a bit of a conspiracy theorist with the whole COVID business and the vaccines, and he spray painted something on someone of the ministry's building, etc., etc., and eventually police killed him. Now, I don't know the details of that situation, but I remember reading that back then. And what made that stand out to me is that guy was messaging me. Because remember, I make videos. I was speaking different things about the pandemic. The guy didn't seem like everything was 100%, but he was speaking to me, and I couldn't tell if there was criminality in it. And then the police went looking for him. He had a gun and they shot him. Surprising. And most of his friends that said they knew him from school said they knew nothing about him in that kind of activity. Everything wasn't 100. Yeah, I believe everything wasn't 100. But when things like this happen, when you see something so blatant police are willing to do, well, it makes you question every single thing else you heard. Every single time police talk about someone shooting at them and them returning fire. Every single time, you have no choice now but to question that. He was a close friend of mine and represented this country in boxing. Yes, I heard that too. The guy was messaging me. I'm not going to say like I know everything. The guy, we spoke barely many words, but so I'm not saying I'm talking about this with that police gang out there. I telling earlier, I am a man, I don't have any legal guns. If the police run in my house with a warrant, I'm letting it be known one time. Officers, I have no illegal guns. I have no access to any illegal guns. If a police is shot while attempting to raid my home, I did not shoot him. I am saying it one time. One time, because this boys in blue gang, they seem a little serious out here. It could make you wonder sometimes when you hear people talking about killers came dressed in the police uniform and they were dressed in fake police uniform and they murdered someone. It could make you wonder, maybe it wasn't fake police. Maybe they're real police out here just doing the hits and nothing is being done about it. It really can make you wonder. But I'm saying it again, for all who are in the stream, I have no illegal weapons in my possession. None. None. Not one. Police have no reason to raid. If they do raid, I will not fire first. If they say they returned fire, they're lying. I am making it known one time. The indoctrination is real with them. Positive radiation. That could be why as people see police, the phone cameras come out. Yes, that is why. That is why people are very worried about the police. And the thing is, I say this regularly when I'm talking about issues with the police and the government, etc. It's the amount of power that they have. The amount of power that the police have. You have a right to be kind of apprehensive about them. Oh, I'm now seeing all these comments over on YouTube. The cream of the crop says, I wonder how do big cities in the US not flood every time it rains? Must be one of life's mysteries we'll never find out. The cream of the crop says, actually, the cream of the crop, you're wrong. Many big cities in the United States do flood. Also, they are in a different climate. The United States and Trinidad and Tobago are not in the same climate. The Trinidad and Tobago is in a tropical climate where we have something called the rainy season. So this is someone speaking about the flooding topic from before, and I'm just replying to that from over on YouTube there. So the cream of the crop, yeah, many big cities. If you look at it, many big cities in the United States, they do flood. New York flooded when the hurricane, was it Sandy, came in. New Orleans flooded when Katrina came in. It's according to their climate. If they don't get much rain, they aren't going to get much flooding. What's the rainfall? What's the average rainfall in many of those cities? That's what you'd have to compare. All right, Causery 1-on-1. Right, you were just commenting there. I'm glad you all are tuning in over there. Positive sucker for Sunset 04. Who have the link with body cams? I feel all of us have to own one. So Since the police don't want to own body cams, everybody should have their own body cam. And anytime the police turn up, you just double tap your check. Quick, quick, quick. As soon as the police, hello, yes, officer. And you only turn in your chest to the officer. Yes, yes, sir. No, you need to arrest me from this side. We all need to have our own body cams for the police now. The same thing with dog police shot. With the dog police shot, yes. Remember we spoke about that? Where was that? Somewhere in, was it Belmont or something like that? Police ran in and shot the people's dog with a little teenage girl, minor girl home alone by herself. Like, really? And then you're saying you're going to search something legitimate. How is someone to believe you? How is someone to believe you? And then if 12 police are willing to go murder someone, I think murder is pretty far down on the criminality line. If police are willing to commit murder, do you think any crimes between murder and not criminality, lesser crimes, would you be surprised if they're doing such? Would you be surprised? I'm gonna start going live right through, yes, just document my life and day-to-day runnings. I regularly think about that. Like, if a police runs up on me, I am going live one time. One time I'm going live. If ever you see me live in the middle of the day or something like that, it's probably a police ran up on me and I'm like, whoops, we're live, officer. Now let's talk. All right. That's all I have for now, folks. Any questions or comments before we dive out? The next thing is Cordell says, as they want you, they come with an easy-to-get warrant. Ria says, this may be out there to say, but I think police, just like the government, think they're above the law. That's not out there to say, Ria. That is not out there at all. Sucker for Sunset says, yeah, let the world see what really happened. Ria says, and that's because they can maneuver the law to suit. Well, the police are different from that. The police don't maneuver the law to suit. I don't think so. Like, the government and big boy businesses do it differently than the police. Government and big boy businesses, they maneuver the law. They know how to run down the clock. They have the money to go straight to the Privy Council. They know if you didn't dot every single I while you were doing this entire case, that somewhere along the line, someone is going to slip up and they are going to get away. The big boy businesses and the government officials and the politicians, that's how they do it. But the police, they don't have that. If a police gets charged and ends up in the court system, I don't find generally they get a lot of special treatment. In fact, they might get it worse inside there. Where they do have the benefit is they do the charging most of the time. They do the arresting most of the time. So if no one arrests you and no one charges you, you cannot be tried for any crime. That's how the police generally do it. So I am sure that on average, police officers get away with much more criminality than the average citizen. The easiest way to look at this is you can predict which vehicle on the road belongs to a police officer by looking at the tint. If you look at a vehicle and you see their windshield is blacked out, you're like, police. Police. If you see all the glasses have G5 tint, police. Or their wife or husband. Yep, we know that. They get away with criminality. Yes, I saw that, Mr. Richard Gladman. You are calling that name like you know the man personally. Do you know the man personally? Because I don't. But yes, I saw he was released on a technicality. But that's kind of the point I was making, doing, Richard Gladman. If you have enough money, you would almost always run this to the end. And in many cases, it nearly seems like in most cases, eventually you would recognize that a mistake would have been made somewhere along the line. A mistake seems like it is always made somewhere along the line. So, can I resist arrest when I was not told you are under arrest? Yes, you can. We saw an off-duty officer pull his gun on a taxi driver because he didn't like the drive. I wouldn't know that police do a lot of things and they get away with it. That's the problem. That's why I said what police need is accountability. And I understand why the police have to have the extra power to do their jobs. They need some extra authority. But in giving them that extra authority, I think they need extra scrutiny. If a police missteps, they should be punished more severely. The steps that a police take should be evaluated more seriously. A police getting an accusation of domestic violence should be taken more seriously, etc., etc., etc. All of those things should be taken more seriously as a police officer. If that means that you have to increase their pay, then so be it. Pay them more, but expect more from them, because as it is, the current setup we have for our police service is creating a gang. That's what we're creating. We have a gang, and then we have a few members of a service. So if a police hold my hand, I am under arrest? Not necessarily, but if they carry you in and they apprehend you, then you are under arrest. Who could we really go to report a police officer? The Police Complaints Authority. They were the ones who just investigated this matter and came to that conclusion. Accountability in this country is like hunting for a unicorn. To be honest, it's kinda that way anywhere in the world. It's the nature of humanity. It's the human condition. All right. Any more comments, folks? If not, that's all I have for now. And I hope you were educated, informed, or entertained. And this was Mindful Live 101. I will see you all again for the next one tomorrow night, Friday at 9. Any more comments? If not, peace out, folks. It was nice. It was nice. I'm glad you tuned in. As I say, it's usually a pleasure for me to do this. And I'll see you all again. Wait. Rhea says, wait. I'm waiting. Wait. Rhea. We were supposed to have a conversation, eh? We never did have that conversation. I think it's a little late now, but we were supposed to have a conversation. Where the afterlife session? Not tonight. I'm tired. But my intention is, with the lives as we progress, that the lives you can jump in and we discuss the same way we discuss during, that we discuss it during the live. So you can jump in. If you want to jump in, you can jump in. I'd like to have that discussion. If you're in tomorrow, we would discuss that. We would. All right, folks. Peace out. Laters. It was nice. So we will do it not twice. We have done it 101 times already. And we'll do it again tomorrow. I'll see you all then.